My name is Sabah. I teach at Krea University, which is in the southern part of India. And I'm very glad actually that Sally was the one who introduced me, because I do have an anecdote which will help me get into my presentation. So Sally and her family, they do something called the Creative Week every year. And they would invite me when I was a student here at the University of Manchester. And I remember the first time Sally invited me, and I said that creative week, I'm not sure I'm very creative. I don't know what I'll do. And she said, well, you can do anything. And I said, in my mind, I have a ghost story that I want to write. Do you think I could come there and do that? And she said, yes. So now I'm going to be reading a part of the ghost story that I started writing in the creative week at Sally's house. A scream tears up the air around me into shreds. Borne upwards by the sound are lemons, small and dried up, and carried up as easily into the sky as scraps of paper. I let the din around me fade out as my eyes follow the lemons floating up past the gilded roof. Some are trapped by an obstruction of brick or tree and fall back down towards the ground, as if suddenly gaining their weight back. The rest of the shrunken lemons are disappearing into the dust. I scrunch up my eyes to see if I can still follow them. Where do dead lemons go? Is it a better place? Munni, Munya. I'm not sure why. The next screens are.
Tears up the air around.
What's that? Is there another way I can show this? I think. Yeah. Munya. I look around to find the source of that incessant call. In the chaos of bodies cavorting to the blaring music. For a moment, I cannot recognize anybody in the courtyard around the shrine. As the sun sets, bright artificial lights are painting the scene before me into harsh colors. Next to me is a man flipping his head from side to side, trying to escape the 100,000 tiny insects fluttering in his face, as if they know I'm watching. A few insects detach from the cloud to swerve in my direction, and I stumble away from them. I look away. Ah, there is the woman who shrieked just now. She is curled up into herself, holding her throat, trapping her screams inside her body. Those lemons must surely hurt. I watched them jostle inside her mouth, now stapled into an ugly grimace. I must keep some distance from one such as her. The lemons have her. Munya, I hear it directly in my ear this time, and a hand grabs me from the side. The face looking expectantly at me is beginning to acquire distinguishable features. One eye smaller than the other, grey hair peeking out from her dupatta. What is happening? Are you okay, Mummy? The woman is saying as she pulls me towards her. I know this hope. It is Ma, but she's clutching me too tightly. I nod my head vigorously in response to the question, hoping her obvious excitement will subside and she will loosen her grasp on my arm. Instead, her eyes widen and she tugs me closer. She seems to be expecting something. So, from below my feet, I pick up a brown lemon. Look, I say, lemon, and I hold it up for her inspection. Where did you find that? She asks with much exasperation, brushing it off my palm. I suddenly remember an image from the past. It is both clear to me and yet shadowed in the colors of childhood. I'm dancing around her in a red dupatta, and through the window I see my mother hanging up the clothes to dry on the clothesline. I race towards her, holding up the dupatta behind me so that it can fly in the wind, like a badge to my exuberance. Just before I slam into her hip, I veer into loops around her, with the dupatta trailing behind me. Very quickly, we are stitched together by stiff red threads. And she hugs me, but her voice is stern. Where did you get this? It is my wedding dupatta, you know. I remember hanging on to her. The sun and my cheeks had not then learned division. But she unwraps us, and as she carefully folds the cloth, she tells me, someday you can have this. I will dress you up on your wedding in it, and everybody will marvel at how beautiful you are, just like your mother. She ended on a laugh, but I was confused. Wasn't her dupatta mine already? I emerge from my memory and see Ma distributing our food onto four misshapen aluminum plates. It is a mishmash of stuff, and I look at it with suspicion. Come on, don't look like that. This food is blessed. We got it from the shrine. God bless the kind souls who gave it. See, Kajal is eating it without complaint, Ma says. Seated quietly, uh, Seated quietly, already tucking away into the food is Kajal, my younger sister. Ma gives a plate of food to Baba and then carries mine over to me where I am seated on the floor of our one-room accommodations built for pilgrims. To one side is the kitchen, hosting the few utensils Ma transported from the village and a kerosene stove, greasy and slightly unbalanced. On the other side is our bulging luggage, still unopened, and some razai mats to sleep on. Crisscrossing the space above our heads are a couple of stacking clotheslines, and the dim tube light high on the wall is casting their shadows over my head, as if cancelling out any thoughts I have. Munya, look sharp. Take the plate from your mother's hands. There's nothing on the ceiling above. I hear Baba's irate voice. And giving him a quick glance, look at the plate of food being held out to me. Ma shoves the plate directly into my lap. I perch it on my lap and look at the assortment of food, some oily, some stale, and all of it unappetizing. I can't make myself eat that. I want to rather step out of this musty room. Visions from last night at the shrine are flickering in front of my eyes. It was all so strange. When they lit the loban in that sooty black pan, I thought I had seen something. What was it in the smoke rising from the burning loban? Whatever it was angry. I had drawn away from the pan when the man had walked past us, while the others around tried to catch the smoke with their hands. This place is frightening. I see people seeking out these shadowy forms in smoke. I just want to be alone and wander in my own thoughts, not dodging lemons and loban. Oh God, what do I do with this girl? The rest of us have finished eating and she still hasn't started. Ma's voice is dripping with frustration. I have to go to the toilet, I say. And putting the plate on the ground, get up. Kajal volunteers to go with me, rushing in to diffuse any tension. And I take the opportunity to walk out into the night. The shared toilets are at one end of the passage. I give my dupatta to Kajal, close the door, and squat over the hole in the ground, finally alone with myself. The door is made of rotten wood, rusting tin, and nails that are lessons in caution, and it does not fit its frame. Cold air rushes in from the space it leaves below, and on the top is the dark sky. The moon is full tonight, but I can only see a slice as the door obscures the rest. Good. It is too bright. There are things of the night prowling in the sky, unafraid, not even trying to hide, unlike me. But in the dark, they cannot see me. I breathe in a sigh of satisfaction in the stillness around me. Hare Munia, wake up now. It's time for the morning prayers of the shrine. I hear in my ear, Ma's voice is looming. A quick surge of anger coursing through me that she won't let me alone. It's still dark outside. The birds are sleeping, the trees are sleeping, but not me. I turn away and pull my leg inside the sheet. Ma is hot with impatience though. She yanks away my cover, and I sit up as the cold wind assails me all over, goosebumps raising the hair on my arms. My hair tumbles down around my shoulders in stiff coils. And then suddenly, I'm energized. When Ma tells me to get up, I quickly stand up before she can finish her nagging. I'm wearing the clothes from yesterday, but these feel warm in the chilly pre dawn, and I convince Ma to let me go out in them. From the open door, I can see that the sky is slowly lightening. We're going to be late now, I tell the rest, now eager to get going. Baba looks pleased to see me so enthusiastic, but he wants a cup of tea before setting out. We can have chai outside the shrine, I admonish him, and he relents. I step out of the room, not being able to wait any longer, stamping my feet to get warm. By the time Baba begins to lock the door, my feet are ready to race, and I start walking alone in the direction of the shrine. I can see the minarets in the distance. I almost stumble over a dirty, matted dog sprawled in the middle of the road. It maniacally barks at me, and I start running in anxiety. Didi, Didi, I look back to see Kajal trying to keep up with me, but I cannot see that dog, though I can hear it howling behind us. I finally reach the gates, my dupatta barely hanging onto my shoulders in my hurry to get there. Ahead of me is the shrine, looking serenely back at me. It's not yet sunbreak, and the shrine seems to be relatively empty. The next, the next moment, I hear the strains of the prayers being thrown into space by loudspeakers. It is the same recording as last evening, and it starts spreading like floodwater. I was so eager to get here, but now I'm afraid that the music will suffocate me and then submerge us all into a watery grave. People brush past me as I falter at the threshold. Kajal comes up behind, breathing hard, and pulls me to the side of the gate so that people are not pushing me in their haste to enter. Cover your head, girls. A man gives me a stern look as he steps inside. His eyes have the power of acid, and I hastily cover my hair as protection against his gaze. Kajal reaches up to adjust my dupatta, her own primly perched on her head. Ma and Baba arrive, and without a word, steer us into the shrine. The sound outside me abruptly shuts off. The recorded song is over, and I am drained. My eyes are tightly shut, and I need to concentrate to open them up slowly, like a drawstring purse. I see a man in crisp white clothes walking towards us with a smoking pan in his hands. Before I can shut my eyes, uh, before I can shut my eyes, he waves the pan in my direction. In a flash, fire jumps in my direction and enters my eyes. I want to scream, but manage to hold it in as the burn quickly starts descending past my nose, my throat, and then shoots down to the extremities. The nails on my fingers and toes curl up in the radiant heat, leaving the pink skin below exposed. The pain is excruciating, but I try to keep it muted. Ma is looking at me. She can see that it hurts. For a second, her eyes glow too. She looks satisfied. Then it is over. I slump to the ground. The cool tiles of the courtyard of the shrine welcome me into their embrace. I let myself sink into it till we are home. So, the story was never really meant to be written. It began as an inquiry, a search for meaning at the 500-year-old shrine of the Mira Datta Dargah in the village of Unnava, Gujarat. I went there to study faith healing, to understand what happens when the afflicted arrive carrying invisible burdens, hoping for relief that medicine or prayer alone cannot offer. I chose this shrine not only for its history, but because something rare happens there. a government supported psychiatric program run side by side with this centuries old shrine. At first, my work was simple enough. I asked, what is faith? What is healing? Who is this devotee caught between religion and reason? But somewhere in those conversations, something unexpected entered the room. I had found the ghost. My research, like most research projects, was grounded in method, in theory, and also in post-colonial thought. The familiar scaffolding of scholarship. And yet it kept slipping through my fingers. So I began to think differently, to treat my work as a series of small modules, each demanding its own way of seeing. Thus, I started to write a ghost story, a part of which I have read out today. Now, let me explain why this seems to be the appropriate method to study the ghost. For this, I would need to take a step back. The Mira Tattar Dargah has often been studied through ethnography, through observation. It lends itself beautifully to that. If you've ever been there, you'd know that a quiet onlooker can witness so much. The exchange between the healer and the devotee, the public rituals at dawn and dusk, the collective energy of faith itself. It's easy to see why researchers are drawn to it. There have been many ethnographies produced of the Mira Dattar Dargah in the last 50 years. The publicness of faith healing practices at this site, in fact, privileges vision and the method of ethnographic and participant observation are particularly suited to attending to the spectacle that the Dargah presents every dawn and dusk. But during my research on ghost stories, then, I began collecting experiences that seemed to resist being simply seen. People told me vivid emotional stories of their hauntings, fragments of feelings, sometimes confusion, sometimes conviction. Folding these haunting narratives into ethnography expanded the research, certainly beyond the purely empirical. It gave room to how people actually live with the unseen. Yet I found myself running into another problem. At certain moments, the narrative falters. Language seems insufficient to hold that experience. The subject's speech reaches a limit, leaving the researcher, me, with a suggestive but incomplete fragment. Now, let me show you what that means. Initially, my inquiry was about the devotee. At the Mira Dattar Dargah, the devotee is called the Sawali, coming from the Persian word sawal, meaning question. So the devotee is somebody with a question. My inquiry was about the devotee, a person who comes to the shrine believed to be tormented by ghosts, spirits, or the evil eye. But as I listened to their stories, my focus drifted to the ghost itself, that strange flickering presence that haunted the edges of their speech but never made itself into it. The ghost seemed to exist just outside the frame of the narrative. It was never fully there. Perhaps I need to explain that. It is that people would find that to talk about the haunting, to talk about the ghosts, would invite the attention of the presence of the ghost back into their lives. And thus, it would actually be difficult for them to concentrate on the healing if they were inviting the ghost back. So while they were talking about the experiences of being haunted, they were talking about what brought them here, about the process of healing, they would not allow themselves to talk about the very thing that brought them here. They would not talk about the ghost. So it was never fully there, not in the narratives. But its absence was unmistakable. How do you write something like that? The ghost is hard to pin down. It emerges as a critique of the narrative itself. And it showed me that narratives do not speak much, or rather, no more than texts of other kinds. They reveal something of the storyteller. On the other hand, too much is said in any interview, and when much is said, so much is also lost. In fact, like a snapshot, the narrative gets framed within the research agenda. The voices of my subjects within narratives became fainter, superimposed by the din of my academic aspirations, of meaning making, of positions taking that defines the social sciences. This reminds me that narratives in research are not simple stories. They must do something, say something that responds to the research agenda. And this is through the researcher's intervention. So, how do we understand the curious opacity in the narrative text? Nothing is self evident in the story form of research narratives. The subject speaks without a full comprehension of what is happening in that interview. Stories are not even narrated in lived time. How else do we understand the dreams that were part of the healing process of the shrine? These dreams may not belong to the Savali, but they could belong to a family member, they could belong to the healer, or even a stranger they met at the shrine. And it would be the dream that would tell them how the process of healing is unfolding. The narrative then thwarts the attempts at meaning making. It hides something in plain sight. Knowledge presented as open and illuminating turns into a non event, something obvious that one must be stupid not to know. So, for instance, my questions of what about the ghost? They'd be like, do you really need to ask that question? Isn't it obvious? If neither observation nor conversation could capture the ghost, I began to think of a method to bring the ghost into language. The ghost is an absent presence rendered into a present absence in the stories of the subjects who live with ghosts. Perhaps then the ghost must be met on its own terms through a different kind of encounter than the one we make with human subjects. A different form of writing, perhaps that offered an alternate path towards the ghost, one attuned to its own sensibility, since its meaning is always shifting. It is always difficult to fix. Thus, today, I read a fictional account inspired by my ethnographic observations of faith healing at Indian shrines. The site I described is not the Mira Datta Dargah, nor are the characters modeled on any single person I met, but the resemblance is unmistakable. While I wrote for Munni, the character that I read out, while I wrote for Munni, the details of the shrine and the rituals came from my field notes. The story gathers my experience of the shrines and their seekers into story form, using a method of ethnofiction, which in the end turned me into a ghostwriter. Through fiction, I tried to come closer to the ghost, to write in a way that could hold both its silence and its presence. For me, this became a different kind of method altogether, one less about solving a mystery and one more about reaching towards what lingers. So, in conclusion, what I'd like to say is that I hope that in the story that I have read out, in the first part of my presentation, you get a glimpse of the spaces where these practices happen. I could describe those practices in different words, in different ways, and yet I think the story does it better than I could. And that's why when I say I'm a ghostwriter, I feel that the story writes through me. It describes its essence in a way that I cannot do through academic language. I think there is also something about the ghost here that allows for this method. It is more suited than the ghost has a method that is more suited towards trying to subvert the distance between truth and fiction. It is difficult to know when we have encountered a ghost. But when we have encountered a ghost, it is difficult to forget it, to not believe in it. So perhaps there was just something I'd like to do for a few minutes now. I think that ghosts are very local. Ghosts in different locations around the world have their own words. They have their own terminology, what they are called. And that while ghost stories are there in all cultures across the world, these cannot be generalized. Ghosts do not travel very easily. And so perhaps I thought what we could do for a few minutes is share the local ghosts that we may have come across. And what I would like to do then is perhaps start with two kinds of ghosts that I have come across in the stories of my research. One is the chudel. Has anybody heard of this word? Okay. So the chudel is a female spirit who leads people away to their doom. But she does that because her legs, her feet face are pointed in the wrong direction. So you cannot follow the chudel to know where she has led her victim because her feet will take you to the wrong side. And so chudels are beings of are frightening beings, and you cannot catch a chudel; they catch you. A second spirit I'd like to talk about is the jinn. Have we heard anybody who's heard of the jinn? The jinn is seen as belonging in an alternate dimension, the same, of that of humans, made of fire, and who can interact with our dimension. And sometimes they can invite us into their dimension as well. Right? So I think variations of that then come up in like stories of genies. So I have many such other Indian ghost spirits, but we have a very diverse crowd here. And I was wondering if anybody would like to speak about some of the local ghosts that they have heard about or even met.
Yeah, encounters with Ready? Do you hear me? All right. Encounters with local birds, nature, particularly the robin. That I've heard in this country. If a robin comes to visit you, it's a bad love one to visit you. So,
Is that British?
I believe so. Well, I like it anyway. But I have robins come to visit you.
My dad's from the Isle of Man, and we have the ferry bridge, and we like to say thank you to the ferries. I've been woken up in taxis on the way to the airport very early in the morning saying, quick, you must say hello to the ferries. Otherwise,
I think the idea of ferries is quite common in the UK. I think my nan's house always had ferries. If my mum wanted to take something up, me and my sister were very little, she would say the ferries would take it. So we couldn't get rid of my sister, wouldn't get rid of her dummy. So the ferries would take it. So she accepted the ferries taking it. She would never accept parents take it. So I think that's quite
Any other ghosts? Spirits?
So, another Marxist. So, in global capitalism, our ghosts are commodities. And the commodity that causes us most distress is money.
I like that. Any others?
I have one. It's not a story, it's not a story, but I just recently found out that it's about gin, that the word genius is derived from genie, so it means to have a demon in your head.
The English word you know what? So I wanted to say something about the kinds of ghost stories that the gender dimension, I think, of ghosts and of hauntings. Many ghosts and spirits are feminine, and very often people who report hauntings or being possessed are women. And there is something quite interesting about the fact that there is this this experience of uh, having one body but many voices. And I think that's what happens in a lot of ghost stories, is that it's never clear who is the one who is talking. The ghost story obscures the voice in the body. And I think that a lot of, therefore, like, the kind of local stories that we might be hearing also allow a certain kind of conversation between the nature of subjectivity. I had, like, the longer story that I tried to write actually tried to play with the idea of body and voice, which is also how a lot of ghost stories have been theorized, and hauntings have been theorized. But I think one thing that this method actually, like, which I have, which I don't use to a great extent in other parts of my research, what it allows me to do is to see knowledge or to see the truth as something that can be mediated through other ways of knowing, right? Or other ways of producing subjectivity. I think that if we were to see the social sciences, or if we were to see knowledge production as something that has to be completely aligned to the idea of method, which is empirical, objective, scientific, we're also restricting the experiences that we can bring of other people and of ourselves to that research. The question is that how do we open that up? How do we make more space for uncertainty in knowledge production? If science requires certainty, it requires objectivity, there has to be perhaps more ways in which we break that, we rupture that. And I would say that then ethnofiction is one of those ways that we can try, that we can break through the certainty, make space for uncertainty within knowledge production. Hence, I do not claim to be telling you something about the scientificity of ghosts, but I do ask you to invite some ghosts into your thought and into your life and see where that might take you. Okay. Thank you.